In this video, I'm going to look at how to create a grid view, that is rows and columns of your products in WP e-commerce. Now, by default, this is what our catalog or products page looks like. It's just one right after another, and that's going to get a bit crazy as soon as you add more than a few products to your store. Now, normally, if we go under Product Settings here, this is on the Presentation tab under your store settings. It says Product Display Default View, that's the one we've got right now. When you drop this down, these aren't visible. They're grayed out. And it says here, Purchase Unavailable Options. So let's go and see what they're talking about here. And what they're talking about is what's called the Gold Cart plugin. All right. And what it does, let's get the details here. What it does, amongst other things, is it allows you to have grid view. There you go. It does add other things as well, so there's more to it than that. But at this point, it's all we've got in order to have a grid view. All right, so let's keep going back over to here. Now, recently, there's been a new plugin that has been brought in that's free. So let's go over to our plugins here. I'm going to add new plugin. You can't go to getshop.org. It's not on the getshop.org site, at least not as of the doing of this video. But let's go in here and we're going to go to WP e-commerce and we search our plugins. And what we're looking for here is WP e-commerce grid view. And it's by A3 Revolution Software. Now, this is a fairly new plugin. And I haven't heard a lot about how it's been working or testing, but it's interesting to try it, and you'll see what I mean. You'll also see why a grid view, of course, is going to be much more useful to us. So I activate my plugin, and that's actually all you have to do. There aren't any settings for it, okay? There is a pro version that they'd like you to buy, but this one has enough features for the moment that it'll get us by for free. So what it's doing is it's activating that grid view in WP e-commerce without us actually having it. So let's refresh without us having to buy the gold upgrade. So now that disappears, and under product display we have our grid view. And this is where we specify how many products per row. So let's say 3 per row. We can decide, do we want just images? No, I want a little bit more than that. And I want the Add to Cart button, definitely. And let's go here, and we'll go all the way to the bottom, and we'll save our changes. So now, let me get rid of that featured products. That's just too annoying. Okay, let's put that in there. So now we don't have our big oval platter in our face. Okay. Now, this is much nicer. This is much more like what you see with typical online catalogs, right? You've got an easy view of everything. Don't worry about colors at this point. This is out of the box. We'll talk about how to change colors in another video. But one of the things I do like about this, by the way, remember back in WP e-commerce itself, out of the box, it didn't indicate nicely with a visual that the item's on sale. I mean, it does say here that it's on sale. It's got an old price and the new price. But I like the visual here. I think that's helpful to people. Now you can see where having multiple products isn't going to be a problem because you've got this nice grid view. Okay? Now, one thing to keep in mind, and one thing that's a bit unusual, if I go back to my plugins here and I find, there it is, WP e-commerce Grid View Lite. I'm now going to deactivate it. So the plugin's gone. I go back to here, watch what happens. If I refresh this, well, it hasn't quite got back to the way it was. It actually looks a little bit like grid view, except it doesn't have columns and rows. But notice, it's just add to cart. Everything's in a straight line like this. Now, the reason for that is, if you go back to your settings here, and I'm going to refresh. Remember, we've taken out our plugin for the grid view. So now we're back to here, Purchase Unavailable, and it's grayed out. But you'll notice the settings are still there. It says per row, but of course it's not showing us in actual rows and columns. I have to actually take this out and uncheck this. And now, when I save my changes, watch what happens. Now we actually do go back to the original view. Remember how it was set up straight out of the box from WP E-Commerce. Okay, so that's just something to watch for. If you happen to remove the plugin, it actually keeps a bit of the settings until you get rid of those under store settings. So at least that's a very interesting option for you to avoid having to pay for the plugin for Grid View, because you may not want all the other elements in that paid plugin. There's more than just Grid View in it. But if you just want Grid View, this may be an alternative. And again, as I say, it's a fairly new plugin, hasn't been tested for long, but it does seem to work quite well.